The U.S. shut down the Texas-Mexico border, not because of a migrant surge, but because something underground shattered assumptions about national security. While floodwaters were still receding and communities were rebuilding, Border Patrol agents unearthed something that changed everything. A tunnel so advanced, so deep, that it looked more like a hidden bunker than a smuggling route. Just recently, agents in San Diego discovered a nearly 3,000-foot-long tunnel running 50 feet under the ground, complete with lighting, electrical wiring, ventilation, and even a rail system. A few months earlier, another 6-foot-tall tunnel linked El Paso to Juárez via storm drains with reinforcements and electricity. These sophisticated tunnels are now all too familiar. But what was found in Texas was different, much, much bigger. What started as a routine patrol near Eagle Pass or Del Rio turned into a full-scale emergency after agents stumbled into a cavernous complex beneath the desert floor. The walls were lined with reinforced concrete and steel beams. Ventilation shafts cooled the air, wiring carried power, surveillance cameras kept watch, biometrics secured checkpoints, encrypted networks hummed with communication. It wasn't improvisational, it was engineered. Forces more capable than any cartel had built this. Agents reported weapon caches, militia-grade gear, encrypted logs, maps targeting infrastructure, all laid out like a military bunker. Bunks, kitchens, medical bays, even interrogation chambers. They found them all. As investigators pieced it together, signs pointed not just to trafficking, but to a paramilitary operation, possibly tied to foreign network support. A decade or more of stealthy existence suggested oversight failures at multiple levels. Within hours, federal units sealed off miles of borderland. Concrete and steel blocked entrances. National Guard, Border Patrol, FBI, DHS, even the Army Corps of Engineers mobilized. High-altitude drones swept overhead, scanning for other entryways. All major Texas crossings, Laredo, Brownsville, Eagle Pass, Del Rio, Laredo, shut down. Traffic reversed for miles. Truckers and commuters trapped. Produce spoiling in fields. Global supply routes interrupted. Panic rippled through border towns. Congress erupted in hearings. Governors demanded explanations. The president declared a state of emergency in affected counties. Intelligence agencies began tracing provenance. Where did the steel and cables come from? Who approved shipments of concrete and ventilation systems? Records emerged of shell company purchases, fictitious engineering teams, shipments routed through other states. Digital logbooks included biometric entries, time-stamped years ago. It became clear this wasn't a single hideout. It was an underground network with branches. Offshoot tunnels were found beneath highways, substations, even near power plants and airports. One arm aimed ominously toward major water infrastructure, another twisted under a substation. Federal agents now worry about widespread subterranean grids, stretching across the southwestern U.S., only now starting to be revealed. Local communities moved from shock to vigilance. Strange hums and vibrations in the night led residents to report every anomaly. Authorities followed up with ground-penetrating radar and magnetometers. Utility crews were enlisted to review historical dig logs. Municipal leaders launched neighborhood watch programs focused on soil upheaval. Experts from counterintelligence warned this tunnel system was a new kind of threat. Silent, subterranean, patient. It bypassed walls, drones, fences, operating in an unseen dimension. Speculation swirled. Was this cartel-driven, or was it a joint venture? Some forensic linguists noted graffiti in Spanish, English, Arabic, Russian, signs of a global footprint. The U.S. government responded fast. The border fence was no longer the front line. Now it was miles underground. New emergency legislation funded detection tech, AI scanned ground radar, university research grants, domestic xenotech programs. Urban planners started mapping risky regions, small towns, rural counties, even city subways and water mains. Because today's Texas terror might be tomorrow's underground threat in New York or Chicago. Back in Washington, pressure grew. Federal agencies are reviewing years of satellite thermal imagery to detect underground heat signatures. Are there other cool zones where ground has been unnaturally cooled to avoid infrared detection? Initial analyses show correlations between shallow temperature dips and political distractions, natural disasters, protests, election campaigns, suggesting the tunnels were built when attention was elsewhere. Engineers warn these tunnels were built to withstand full demolition, curved shafts, reinforced caps, deep placement under foundations. Traditional flooding or explosives would risk surface structures above. That's why dismantling is painstaking. Specialized underground robotics, remote demolition units, and non-invasive sealing techniques are being deployed. The process could take months or longer. As the investigation into the vast underground tunnel network deepened, attention turned to an even more chilling concern: environmental contamination. Federal agencies began a coordinated response to assess the potential risks to one of the United States' most critical natural resources: its water supply. Several of the tunnel arms were discovered running dangerously close to the Ogallala Aquifer, a massive underground freshwater reserve that stretches beneath 8 states from South Dakota to Texas. This aquifer supplies drinking water to nearly 82% of the people living within its boundary and supports vast agricultural operations across the central U.S. The tunnels, some reinforced with steel and concrete, had been bored through soil layers just above or alongside critical water-bearing strata. If these structures were compromised, either through structural collapse, chemical leaks, or deliberate sabotage, the consequences would be catastrophic. Agencies immediately launched an environmental monitoring operation. Teams from the Environmental Protection Agency, EPA, and the Department of the Interior, DOI, were dispatched to the affected zones to test both soil and groundwater. The goal was twofold: determine whether contamination had already occurred and evaluate whether there was potential for future infiltration. Several sealed chambers within the tunnel complex showed evidence of former chemical storage. In one case, gas canisters were discovered, some empty, some damaged, with unknown residue clinging to their surfaces. Other areas contained tightly sealed compartments, insulated and atmospherically controlled, suggesting they may have been used for the handling or testing of hazardous materials. The presence of air filtration systems and blast-proof doors pointed to dangerous contents once housed inside. Laboratory analysis of nearby soil samples revealed abnormal chemical signatures, traces of compounds known to be used in the manufacturing of industrial solvents, explosives, and potentially even chemical warfare precursors. While no active biological agents were confirmed, the mere presence of such infrastructure hinted at experimental or illicit activities that had flown completely under the radar of federal and environmental oversight. The implications were immediate. Not only was the tunnel network a threat to national security, but it now posed a potential environmental and public health emergency. A single compromised wellhead could poison hundreds of thousands of residents. A single breach in the aquifer's protective layers could spread contaminants across multiple states within weeks. Due to the potential for cross-border contamination and international impact, the United States quietly invited observers from NATO and the United Nations to witness containment protocols. These representatives were granted restricted access to key sites, not for political show, but to assess the threat level from a global ecological and public safety perspective. The goal was to ensure transparency, but also to gain expert insight into how to mitigate what could become a widespread ecological crisis. The tunnel discovery had already shaken the country's sense of physical security. Now it threatened the invisible lifelines beneath it, the very water millions rely on every single day. It was no longer just about infiltration, it was about contamination, and the stakes had never been higher. At the human level, the psychological impact has been profound. People who once slept peacefully now lie awake listening for underground disturbances. Local mental health hotlines are busy. News crews stream squatters tunneling in Reddit threads and TikTok clips. Some calling it organized crime, others calling it hybrid warfare. Border communities fear a new normal. Daily lives disrupted. Grocery store shelves sparse. Bank withdrawals limited. Local economies shrank by 30% overnight. Awareness shifted. Fences no longer mark security, underground networks do. As the tunnel lockdown continues, several critical questions loom. How many tunnels exist? Are they still being used? Did anyone slip through its chambers into major U.S. cities? Is this a cartel network or a paramilitary liaison tunnel farm built to launch sabotage or sleeper activity? Until those questions are answered, the U.S. remains on edge. The Texas border is not reopening anytime soon, and the fallout has only begun. This is more than a tunnel shutdown. It's a wake-up call. It's a signal that national security now means looking deep, not just across the border, but beneath it. If this has shaken you, smash that like button. Share this video and subscribe, because underground threats aren't obvious, but they're real. Let us know in the comments what you think about this tunnel network and what you think should come next. Thanks for watching.